Alabama has a pretty obvious Achilles heel. Now, here's how you play them. Okay. You play keep away. You keep their offense off the field. You get out to an early lead. They'll probably get a little impatient and they'll probably get a little one-dimensional. If you look at the game plan that Oklahoma used, I'm talking just not talking specifics to how they moved or stunted defensively, not talking specifics to their formation usage offensively. I'm talking simply from a complementary football standpoint. The game felt eerily similar to what Vanderbilt did several weeks ago against Alabama. Now, it wasn't the same type of offensive performance that we got from Oklahoma as we got from Vanderbilt. But if you look at the amount of plays that Alabama has and the fact that they felt like they were constantly playing from behind, it was a very uncomfortable situation to be in if you're Alabama. Alabama had 4 offensive possessions in the first half. They went 3 and out on 2 of them, and they had only 27 offensive snaps in the first half of that football game. They're just not a team right now that can play from behind. They're not a team right now that's going to beat you by dropping back 30 plus times, 40 plus times in some cases, and expecting to win the game. Against LSU, we saw the perfect recipe for the Tide. They ran the ball 48 times. I think they threw it like 18 times. And as a result, it led to their best offensive performance against a decent opponent all season. Well, that was not the recipe against Tennessee. And that was certainly not the recipe this past weekend against Oklahoma. We'll start with Alabama's offense. To run for just 75 yards on 30 attempts, about 2.5 per carry, it's their lowest rushing total of the season. And I think that's something that needs to be acknowledged. And while so many people are pinning the blame almost exclusively on Jalen Milroe, I would encourage you to look beyond the quarterback position. Because while Milroe did not play well, I mean, he played poorly in the game. There's no denying that. There's no spinning that. There's no one that can make a justification against that. 2 of his 3 interceptions were bad decisions and bad throws. One at the end, I don't think that was on him. That was on the right side of the protection where he got hit as it was throwing. The ball's deflected up in the air. It's secured for the interception. But if you look at some of the play around him, his supporting cast, I thought 4 different wide receivers could have made catches and didn't. Massive drops that killed drives. Ryan Williams, one of their best players, I thought had maybe his worst performance as far as consistency is concerned. TJ Dupree, one of the most reliable weapons that they have, dropped the pass. A couple running backs dropped the pass. The right side of the offensive line struggled throughout the course of the game. And I thought Oklahoma did a great job of attacking the right side. How often they aligned guys on that right side and made things a little bit confusing and made things a little bit uncomfortable. And they were super aggressive on the edges of the defense as well. So Alabama's offense, while Milroe deserves to shoulder some of the blame for sure, he was not alone in the subpar performance. As far as Alabama's defense is concerned, to give up 257 yards on the ground is never going to be a situation where you can try to defend it. 205 in the first half, massive time of possession advantage in favor of Oklahoma there in the first 30 minutes. And in their final 2 first half possessions, 11 plays, 51 yards and a field goal, and then 12 plays, 67 yards and the touchdown to take that 10-3 lead. Over those 23 plays, they ran the ball 19 times for 96 yards and ate up nearly 11 and a half minutes of game time. So the keep away, the ball control, all that stuff led to Alabama's offense being really uncomfortable. And then in the second half, Alabama's defense made adjustments and was better, frankly, in the second half. But at that point, it was already in a position because of the turnovers by Alabama's offense. They weren't going to likely be in a position to be super successful. So difficult night for Alabama, really bad night for the offensive execution. And another thing too, a bad night as far as just mannerisms and body language and things like that on the sideline. And that comes down to some of the players. That comes down to how things are handled in adverse situations. There were times where it just felt like, man, something was off from the beginning, and it was compounded. The anxiety on the sideline was compounded by the behavior of some. I don't think people are giving enough credit to Oklahoma. I really don't. I think Oklahoma had a really, really solid plan. And part of that was addressing what Alabama wants to be offensively, attacking the edges of Alabama's offensive line on both sides, mostly on the right, but on both sides, making the reads for Jalen Milroe a little bit cloudy with the run game. There was a lot of gray area with some of the reads that were created by Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's defense, we've long praised how good of a group that is, how proud of a group that was. They saved their best for last. And many of those players playing their last game there in Norman, they played a phenomenal football game. Danny Stutzman was terrific. Kip Lewis was terrific. Billy Bowman was terrific. And I thought the offensive plan, while simple, was constantly stressing a part of the defense for Alabama that at times has shown some vulnerabilities. And they hadn't really been attacked like that in a while. It was, like I said, somewhat similar to the eye violations and the candy that Vanderbilt ran at them. And I thought Oklahoma executed at a really high level. So while a lot of the attention nationally will be on Alabama and their ineptitudes, Oklahoma and Brent Venables, their defensive staff and their offensive staff deserve immense credit for a complete performance and an opportunistic performance by turning over the tide 3 times there throughout the game.